The Magicians Podcast is brought to you in proud association with the Magic Circle, Alakazam Magic and Gigio.
What are the chances the Radio Times were in on that one show out of 150 shows?
That is bad luck.
It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare at the time, and I was embarrassed and stuff. But hey, you know what? I was trying to be different.
Had a dream, I had it made it. Now there's nothing dragging down me, yeah. 'Cause the don't push it all out the way. Destined to break in, I found my way, yeah. Now I ain't nobody gonna take it. 'Cause the don't push them all out the way.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Magicians Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Young. Thank you very much for pressing the download button. You are in for a real treat this week, and I said those words at the beginning of Richard Cadell's first interview back on the 25th of June 2015. It's been over 3.5 years since Richard sat in the hot seat here on the Magicians Podcast, and it's an honour to have him back. He's actually the first guest to ever return to the Magicians Podcast hot seat, and I guess maybe some of you are wondering why. Well, it's no secret, I've said it many times, it was one of my favourite ever podcasts that I made. I thought it would be good and it turned out to be great. So just to let you know, you will be able to enjoy this interview if you never heard episode 31, but I would sincerely recommend you go back and listen to it if you never did. You don't need to be interested in Sooty, you don't even really need to know who Richard is or much about him. I promise you it's just a fantastic podcast with a really interesting guy who's a great talker, who has a really brilliant outlook on life, and that's why he's back again today. We're going to catch up with what he's been up to over the last 3.5 years and just have a chat with him. I can absolutely assure you it's a fantastic interview that you're about to hear. But before we get to it, there's a few things that I need to update you with. The first one being that there is currently a competition going on. You can win a free gold card registration for this year's Blackpool Magic Convention, courtesy of Gigio, and £50 of credit at the Alakazam stand, compliments of the Magicians Podcast. What do you have to do? Well, it's very simple. You have to get yourself on Instagram. That's the hot social media these days, and the Magicians Podcast has sort of, not done too well on there, to be honest, so I'm trying to kind of draw a bit of attention to it, and with the help of Martin from Gigio, we're working together to make that happen. All you have to do to enter this competition is to follow the Magicians Podcast on Instagram and post a picture of where it is that you're listening to the podcast. We launched this competition last week. We've had a few entries, but not many, so you have a fantastic chance of winning this competition if you do enter this week. So just get yourself on there and post a picture of yourself listening to the Magicians Podcast. Tell us where you're listening, and also tag in at GetGigio and at the Magicians Podcast so that we see it and can enter you into the competition. It runs until the 31st of January, at which point a winner will be chosen and notified. And that's it. Get yourself involved. It's going to be great fun. Okay, I think it's time to check in with our great friend Alan Hudson and find out what's going on. Alan Hudson, chat me up. What's going on?
Richard Young, great to hear from you. This is the absolute highlight of my week in January.
There's nothing else going on, is there?
There's nothing going on.
Actually, that's not true. You told us last week you've done 3 gigs this month already. How were they?
Yeah, I did do 3 gigs. Yeah, they were good actually. They were, they were nice ones. I did a sort of family show. Well, I say a family show. There was 3 kids not watching, and the rest were adults. So I did like a cabaret thing, 45-minute cabaret. That was nice.
Nice fee for that.
Yeah, it was good. And I did a wedding, which was in this place called Englefield House, and they use it for X-Men. It was Xavier's home in X-Men First Class. It was one of those really big old posh buildings.
Wow,
that was good. And I can't remember what the other one was, to be honest. It was fun. You forget, don't you? Do you know what? Sometimes you can do a gig and then you can ring someone on the way back and they go, "How was it?" And I go, "Oh yeah, it was alright." And they go, "Where were you?" And I go, literally forgotten.
Strange and I always used to say that you could ask on Thursday, "Where were you last weekend?" and you wouldn't remember.
Yeah, I've honestly sometimes forgotten minutes after going.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? And that's not any disrespect to the party. It was, maybe it was like really nice, but you just kind of, you have that attitude that once you take your jacket off and hang it up in your car, and then I swap my shoes over for my trainers and then set off, and I go, oh, I'm going home now. I'm gonna get home and start watching I don't know, catastrophe or something. I go, oh, that'd be good when I get back, right? And all of a sudden I'm thinking about that. I'm not thinking about where I've just been, so I can't even remember.
Yeah, you made your money in January then, so you off on a cruise now with Kat? That's what you normally do?
No, do you know what? We normally go away in January because there is nothing going on, right?
Nothing going on.
At this time of year, the only thing going on is people are getting an omnideck engraved to go on Britain's Got Talent, right? That is the only thing going on for magicians in January, right? And let me just tell you now, they've seen it. They've seen it all before. Right, don't bother.
They really have.
It's a real, session actually is the only thing, isn't it? Session convention, but this comes out on the day of the session, so there's no point really sort of mentioning that too much. Although some people might be on the way to the session as they listen to this.
Well, that's nice to think of, isn't it? That maybe there's some people on their way to the session listening to the Magicians podcast. If you do, I hope you have a great weekend there. It looks like an amazing lineup, which we already discussed.
Yeah, it'd be good. You're going, aren't you?
I'm going to hopefully go, this weekend.
Yeah.
And
so if you see Richard Young, go over and say hello.
Yeah, no, please do. It'd be nice to meet any podcast listeners. I saw the schedule, and it's like a sandwich of amazing things. Andy Nyman first thing on the Friday morning, Matt King last thing on the Sunday before the gala show doing his lecture. That means you've got to be there the whole weekend, basically, doesn't it? Literally two amazing things happening right at the beginning, right at the end, and there's loads of great stuff in the middle, of course. But those are the two things I'd be most excited about.
Yeah, so it is good.
Are you going?
Yeah, I think I am. I've still not booked, but it is my intention to go. And we're doing this 2 days before the session, so probably should get round to it, shouldn't I?
Yeah, you should.
Probably should book.
Here's some big news.
Oh, go on.
Big news. Les Mis. I'm a big Les Mis fan.
Yeah, I know Les Mis.
Yeah, you and me went to Les Mis together, didn't we?
We did,
years ago. Yeah. It's moving theatres in the West End. Jamie Allen shared it on his Facebook. I couldn't believe it. It's moving from the Queen's Theatre to another theatre while they refurb the theatre that it's in. But it didn't actually say in the article that it's definitely moving back to the Queen's Theatre. What are your thoughts on that, Hudson?
My thoughts are this is a very unusual thing to come up on a Magicians podcast because no one gives a shit about it. You are literally the only person, I think, who cares about this. But yeah, it's moving to the Gielgud, I believe. Yeah. Actually, me and you. Me and you are the only ones that care.
I had no idea how you say the name of that theatre, so I'm glad you said it first.
And somebody weird like Stephen Baker, he probably cares. But
somebody will know. Well, Jamie Allen cares because he shared it on his Facebook. That's how I found out the news. So thanks for sharing it, Jamie.
All right, less than 5 people care.
Exactly right.
Yeah, so January, right? Nothing's going on. So apart from the session, and then the thing that I've found that works is exercise. Now that's a stupid thing to sort of go, oh, I'll tell you what's good for you is eating healthy and exercise, right? It sounds like a real stupid thing to say. But I never used to do that. What I used to do is eat a lot of doner kebabs and sit on my arse in January. That's what I used to do. And then what I found is, if you exercise and eat healthily, apparently all those books are right, and it does really help you. And I used to get quite depressed in January, and now I don't. So that's a little tip for people.
So what do you do in the gym, Hudson? Are you on the treadmill? Are you on the rowing machine? I imagine you have a little headband. I don't know why. Do you have a headband?
Look, I'm not posting any pictures of myself in the Magicians Muscle Magic group. If that's what you're implying, right? I'm not getting shredded. I do about 20 minutes on the cross trainer running machine, and then go down and do a few free weights, and go on some of those machines, and yeah, it's good, and it's not to look. I'm not getting muscly or anything because you need to work really, really hard at that. But it's just for your mental health. It's just you just feel better.
Also, it might stop you dying younger as well. Everyone thinks about the kind of the vanity reasons of being thinner and looking better, but you know what? Actually, it might actually increase your lifespan as well. So yeah, every magician sat on their arse in January. Get yourself in the gym.
Go to the gym.
That's where you belong.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. It is good for your mental health. That's right, actually, and we've discussed this before. I used to get down in January. It's a very depressing time, really. It's dark by 4:30 outside, but yeah, the exercise is really, really good for your mental health.
Yeah, because you've done all the gigs at Christmas as well, right? So because you've had like all of those parties, and it's been, sometimes a couple a day, right? And sometimes maybe 5, 6, or for some people 7 days a week. They just go mental over Christmas, fitting loads of gigs in, and then all of a sudden it grinds to a halt, right? And you just got the odd one here and there. For a lot of people, obviously not everyone, but for a lot of people, I think that's why it's a real crash, isn't it? It's a real come down. So it is important to do something.
Can I tell you about the craziest day I just had?
Go on.
This is honestly, this is a day I will never forget. So, as you know, we've just been in Toronto doing the 3-week run over Christmas. We just did a 4-show day. So an 11 a.m, 2 p.m, 5 p.m, 8 p.m. show last Saturday. And it's going to be pretty tough anyway. But on top of the 4-show day, I was very, very ill. And I don't know how I got through it, actually. And I kind of thought, no, I'm not gonna go home or anything or cause a big problem, because it is naturally a bit of a problem if Young or Strange can't make it to the stage. So yeah, I just basically was going on. We open and close the show, so I have about an hour and 15 minutes in the middle where I'm not on. But basically I was just going on, doing the first bit, going back to my dressing room, collapsing on the floor, and then literally getting myself up, getting changed, and going back on and doing the second bit. Then go and do the meet and greet for half an hour, going back to the dressing room, get changed, go straight back on, do the opening for the next show, go back to the dressing room, crash on the floor. I repeated this 4 times through the day. And it was this amazing thing which I wanted to sort of share, which was, if you think you're too ill to do a show, you're probably not, actually. Doing the show was absolutely fine. I don't know what happened to my body. When I walked on the stage, I felt fine. It was just when I came off, there was a horrible crash afterwards, where obviously I probably shouldn't have done it. But yeah, it was an amazing day, a day I'll never forget. It was a really, really, really tough day. But I surprised myself that I did actually get through it, albeit I then slept for about 14 hours that night. So,
I can imagine. Yeah, do you know what? Well, that's a self-employed thing as well, isn't it? And in show business, you can't really take days off. So if you are a bit ill and you can manage it, you tend to go and do it. And do you know what? There's an old showbiz saying, right? And I'm allowed to swear on this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is the saying. It's, if you're gonna die, lay down and die. If you're not gonna die, get up and do the fucking show. that is the saying. I used to hear that in the circus when I used to years ago. I used to help out with things, and that was, when people would complain about being ill and stuff like that. Like I'd hear that a lot. It's really funny.
That is great. Anyway, is there any update with your mug?
Well, yes and no.
Right, here we go.
I've got
my attention.
I've got bad news, good news, and brilliant news. And then maybe slightly bad news again.
This is a lot of news. We've got time for this.
It's a lot of news, right. So the news is this, Young. First of all, still no mug for Magic Week. Not a peep.
Right.
Not a whisper.
Okay.
Nothing. However, what I have got is from the company Nobody Knows. You know who do the Turner Watch? We mentioned them on the show, actually. Rory Adams.
Oh, yes. Yes, Rory Adams.
Sent me a little message saying, we are going to send you a mug.
Right.
With the Nobody Knows logo on it. Right? It's a funky little logo. Right? So it's going, I know you haven't got a mug, so we're going to send you one. Right? So, and I've got the DPD thing. It's emailed in. So the mug, it's not the Magic Week mug, but it is another mug, and it's on its way. That is great news.
That is absolutely brilliant. So they were listening.
Here's even better news. Those watches, which are, let's be honest, probably like the trick of the year, 2018.
Yeah.
Is sending me one of them as well.
No way.
Yeah.
Why am I not getting one?
I don't know. I said that we get one each, and he said no. He said.
Right.
I said
never mentioning them again. I do the edit. They've made a big mistake here. It's me who does the edit, not Hudson.
I said, do we need to plug it? And he went, absolutely not. We're fine. He said, we sell out in 20 minutes anyway. There's a new window coming up at some point. We always sell out. And I went, oh, okay, fine. And so that is amazing, isn't it? That is the trick of 2018. I mean, I've not seen it in real life, but apparently it's brilliant. And I've got the order through again, discounted to nothing. Yeah, so great news, young. Hudson gets the mug and the Turner watch.
This is honestly what a terrible start to the new year for Richard Young. I bring you on my podcast and you get a free Turner watch. How does that happen? I've been working on this podcast for 3.5 years. Unbelievable.
We need to start mentioning other stuff. Should we mention that timeless trick again by Heyo Miranda?
Yeah, actually, if we're going to start talking about stuff, let's start talking about some of the big toys, shall we? What about illusion projects in Las Vegas? Tim Clothier.
They're about 30 or 40 grand, aren't they? Yeah, let's talk about some of them.
So actually, I'm gonna break the rules, and I got some exciting news actually. So this week's episode, as everyone will already know because they've pressed the download button on it, is the big return of Richard Cadell back to the Magicians Podcast. I'm really excited to share this episode, but in this interview you're about to hear, you're going to hear Richard talk quite a lot about a magician called Tim Clothier. Those of you who don't know, Tim Clothier is an English magician who, once he sort of finished his performing career here in the UK, he moved to Las Vegas, and he's now known pretty much as one of the world leaders in building illusions, and he builds for David Copperfield and anyone you can think of, really. Tim Clothier builds their props, and also he built a lot of the props that Richard Cadell uses that you may have seen him do at Blackpool last year or at Winter Wonderland last Christmas or the Christmas before. And I was recently in Las Vegas for 1 day. I was there for 1 day, and I did 2 things in that 1 day. Actually, I did 3 things. The first one was I had brunch with Lance Burton, which was just unbelievable, and that was thanks to Kayla Drescher. Then I got in an Uber, and I went and recorded a podcast with Tim Clothier, and then that evening I went and saw David Copperfield. It was one of the best days of my life.
That's a good day, isn't it?
But the interview with Tim Clothier is amazing. This is a fantastic podcast, and it's coming up next week. So you do not want to miss it. Next Friday, right here on the Magicians Podcast feed, Richard Young interviewing Tim Clothier of Illusion Projects Las Vegas, and it's going to be brilliant.
That is a good one. That's a really good one, and I can't wait to hear that because I knew Tim a little bit when he was in the UK, just as a young magician, hanging around conventions and stuff. And then he sort of went off and did this whole illusion thing and moved to Vegas, and I've never spoke to him since. And I really don't know his story. So 2 things. 1, that is brilliant. I can't wait to listen. 2,
yeah.
Do you realise now that you've broken your rule of saying who the next guest is? From week 1, you said I'm not going to reveal who the next week's guest is. You've done that every week so far.
I get excited. And listen, I've got to tell you, right, when I started making these podcasts, I assumed that meant basically while I was making them, I was going to talk to people like you about close-up gigs. This episode next week, Tim Clothier talks about what it is like to load a tiger into a prop. I never in my wildest dreams did I ever thought I would talk to someone who loaded tigers into boxes for a living. Tim did, and he shares the story next week. He also talks about what it's like to work with David Copperfield and to basically build props for all of the world's greatest magicians. And he's very honest. He talks about what a bloody pain in the arse we all are sometimes as well. It's a great podcast, honestly. He's a great talker. And yeah, it's coming up next week. It's going to be brilliant, Hudson. I'm really excited to share it with everybody.
That's good. Did he mention me?
No, mate. I assume you source your own balloons for your act and paper bags, right?
Unbelievable. Right. Now, can we just touch upon last week's episode a little bit?
With Kayla Drescher. Yes,
right,
please
another great episode. Right, they're all good, right? I say that every week, but they're all good episodes, right? We all tune in because you do a good job, right?
Thanks.
I think people are thinking, when does Hudson get to talk to the guests?
You think they're thinking that? I don't think they're thinking that.
Do you not?
Well, listen, it's very simple. If you are listening to this podcast right now and you are thinking that, then let us know. Let us know. You can tweet us, you can message us, you can leave a comment on Instagram post, you can send me a message on Facebook, you can get in touch with Alan Hudson through alanhudson.net, his Close Up Magic website. And I don't believe people are thinking that. I really don't. But
All
I'm
right,
happy to stand corrected.
I was thinking that. When is Hudson? When do we start chatting to the guests together, young? That is what we want to know. Right, let's talk about this afterwards. But for now, right, last week's episode, very good. And I'll tell you what was good. Because she's a female magician that does close-up, like doing Las Vegas and stuff like that, that was interesting to hear how that works. I liked it at one point, she said she was Builder's Atmosphere. That was good. Because we all think that, don't we, about how we're done. But also she said about how, and then she said how like she got $100 an hour, which is really low. And I thought, well, she should get a magic gig share, shouldn't she? That's the place to be. That's a fee for an Odeon gig, that. But yeah, she gets like weird emails and stuff. So you go. That's one thing that most people have thought of, I think, in the past, that if you are a female magician, you do get different emails and different requests. So she was saying that she got asked to do magic poolside in a bikini. I mean, Dave Jones never gets that email, does he?
No, I don't think he does.
It's Michael Vincent in getting a call saying, "Hi, Michael, have you got a thong you can wear to the next gig?" Right? He's never getting asked that. So you go.
What's the strangest request your missus has got, Kat? Misdirection.
Well, do you know what?
She must have
she has had one. That sounds like we've set this up, but she has had a weird request. And I'll tell you what it was. It was for a sex party, right?
Really?
Yeah, and she had to sign like an NDA. And the gig was this, that because she was going, oh look, I'm not into all that. Right, and I know she said that because I get all her emails, right? Because I look after her misdirection emails for her. So, but she replies to some as well. But we get it on the same thread so we can see it because I sometimes do confirmations. Anyway, I'm not controlling her. I'm not. She's got her own email address that she has as well on her own. Right.
You look after her iPhone too, right?
So yeah, she got this thing, and then going, no, we don't want you for the thing. We don't want you for that bit. We just want you for the first hour, right? So it's as the girls are walking around, we want a magician going. Just dressed nicely, during the canapes, and it's just a bit where people are having drinks, and then the girls will come in after about an hour, and then they'll start pairing off with them, and they'll go off for this sex party, right? And in the end, it didn't come off, which we're quite pleased about because we thought that's going to be awkward, isn't it?
That is going to be awkward, yeah, definitely. Actually, I can say that I won't name the magician, but there's a well-known magician that I worked alongside once. This is many years ago. Wow, maybe 5-6 years ago. But we worked in a swingers club together for an evening doing close-up magic, and it was just like a normal gig. It was like a bar area, and we were just working in the bar area. But it was a swingers club. It was a poor fee. That's what I remember. It was a very poor fee, but it was an interesting evening. And you know what? Swingers, they like Omnideck just as much as the next person. Yeah. So
do you stay on for a bit after the gig?
I don't remember. I don't remember what happened after that.
Basically, what we all want to know is, have you actually run out of guests now? And now you're just going through old people. I'm not as old. I mean, people you've done before.
No, that's not what's happened. Well, first of all, as I said, it's season 4 we're up to now. You tweeted it was season 3, by the way. I was furious about that. This is season 4, okay?
Yeah, season 2 is very forgettable.
I thought
no, it's the one I was in. So.
You were in episode 38, I think, weren't you?
Have you got like a memory for all like episodes that people are in? If I said Nick Einhorn.
No, I don't remember them all like that. But I remember everyone who's been on the podcast, and I remember every podcast because they take a long time to make, and I sit and do an edit and everything. So every episode you listen to that maybe is an hour long, I probably would have spent 15 hours working on that episode. So I always remember who's been on and who isn't.
I do know how it works, but I know that's what people are thinking, and this is if they're thinking it, I'm saying it.
So you're wondering if you're going to get another episode? Is that what you're thinking?
Oh yeah, good point. No, let's not do that.
Basically, Richard was at Junior Day with you and I. You were there too.
Yes.
And this was back before Christmas, and when I realised he was going to be there, I was asked to interview him on the stage for the young magicians in the afternoon, and I thought, you know what, if we're going to do that, why don't we do a new podcast and break all the rules and have him back, because as everybody knows, it was one of my favourite podcasts we ever made, just because I think Richard's just so interesting and is a great talker.
He's great. He's got a lot to say, hasn't he? And you already sort of had half the story really when you did it last time. So yeah, can I tell you my Cadell story before we?
Yeah, just before you
do,
go on. I'll tell you one of the reasons. Here's one of the reasons why Richard is a great podcast guest. Is that he is happy to share his failures as well as his success. A few years ago, there was quite a damning criticism of this podcast, which is that some of the guests, sometimes it just sounds like PR.
Yes.
And all they do is talk about their successes. I try really hard to make sure that doesn't happen. In fact, I often say that to guests at the beginning before we press the record button, that we need light and shade here in the interview in order for it to be a good interview. And Richard, I don't even need to say that to Richard. He's going to share his successes and his failures, and it makes him human, right? And so yeah, that's why he's a great podcast guest. And you're going to love this week's episode. What did you want to share then? You're Richard Cadell.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, no, Richard's very honest, isn't he? And he doesn't hold back. And if you speak to him, he's one of the nicest people, I think, that I've met in magic. And yeah, and always seems to be very, very honest. So hoping it's a great episode, Richard. Can't wait. Let me tell you about Cadell. So when I was living in Hull, my hometown, Cadell came to the theatre with Sooty, right? Because Sooty was on tour. And it's going back on tour, right?
It is in February. The Sooty Show will be on tour in February through to June, and it's an amazing show this year. It's perfect for all the Magicians podcast listeners because it's called Sooty's Magic Show, and you will hear in this interview there's a lot of magic that's going to be in this show. Some of it sounds incredible. In fact, a lot of it is being built by Tim Clothier in Las Vegas, so you don't want to miss it. It's almost certainly coming to a town near you, and get yourself along.
Well, this is all nicely packaged and rounded up, isn't it? It's all ties in. He was doing that show, right? And I said to him, what about after the show we go for a meal and we go out for a few drinks, and I'll pick you up from the theatre. What time do you finish? Right, so he finished the show. I picked him up. He had this big flight case with him, and he said, can we put that in the back of the car? I went, okay. We went round to my house, and then we walked down to the local pub for a meal, right? We then decided, because we were a bit younger then, that we might go into town, right, and go to a few nightclubs.
Right.
And I thought, this would be good. All right, we'll go clubbing. All right, wouldn't dream of doing this now, obviously. But it's back in the day. And then he said, the only trouble is, in that box there, I've got Sooty, Sweep, Sue. The original bed from Harry Corbett. The box, the blue box that says Sooty on it. The water pistol. All the bits, basically, all the bits. And he said, I'm doing a show tomorrow at 2:00. That has to get back to me. Now, before you jump ahead, I did get back to him, right? That's not the story. The story, it's not that I didn't get it back to him, so that, because otherwise it's a very disappointing end. But he did say to me, please, whatever you do, don't go in the box, don't touch it. Now, bearing in mind, we'd then gone out drinking and to a nightclub and stuff, and I got back in at about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Of course I did. Of course I did. So, and do you know, I've never told Richard this, because I said I took it to him the next day. I went, I promise I never touched it. Never, honestly, I just fell straight asleep when I came in. I didn't fall asleep. I was there for an hour. I was on the sofa. I was squaring myself with water from Sooty. I was doing Sooty and Sweep behind the sofa to myself. Oh, it was that was the best thing ever. Can you imagine having all the props for Sooty and Sweep in your house and nobody to stop you from doing it?
That is a brilliant story, Hudson. That's the best contribution you've made to this podcast yet. So I appreciate it. Also, he's a nice guy, so he'll be all right with it. And also, talking to nice guys, he talks about that quite a lot on this podcast, about being a nice person in this business. and you will hear I took an excerpt from he gave the young magicians some great advice, and he said to them about being a nice person. So there's a little change that will happen in this interview that you'll hear, where he will be talking to me, and then there's a little bit of music that will play, and then what you're hearing then is him talking to the kids, talking to them about being a nice guy. It's only a couple of minutes long, and then it will come back to the interview with me and him. But if some of you are wondering what that is, there you go, you know what it is. That's the moment when he was talking to the kids about being a nice person. Hudson, this has been brilliant, and I'm excited to hear what you think of this next week, and thanks for sharing that story. It's been great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, cheers, John. Can't wait for next week. I've got a busy week coming up.
Have you?
No, I've got nothing going on. Right. Speak to you next week.
Speak to you later. Cheers. Bye-bye. Well, who would have thought, eh?
Yeah, here we are again.
3.5 years later, welcome back to the Magicians Podcast.
Do you know they say you should never do a trick twice?
Yeah.
I'm sort of wondering if this is going to be a real poor second, but I'll try my best.
Well, this is. I don't know how this is going to go. I've got loads of stuff to talk to you about because it's been a long time. Actually,
Yeah, I suppose
3.5
so.
years,
I suppose so.
I remember that lovely day I came to your house, and it's still on the feed if anyone wants to listen to it, episode 31. We sat with the view of the beach. And,
We did. I still have that wonderful view. I'm very lucky. And
very lucky man.
yeah, that's it.
And how have you been? First, we'll start with a very simple thing. How have you been?
I've been fantastic. I've had a lovely, since we last met over the podcast, I've had some great things happen, and I'm still living the dream, really.
Literally.
Getting away with it. Yeah, still getting away with it.
How's Sooty?
Sooty's great.
Sweet.
He's great. I'll pass on your regards. And Sue equally so, yeah.
Yeah, no, when I listened back to the episode we made, I realised I was quite rude, actually. I never asked how Sue was. It's just because, Sooty's the legend, Sweet was my favourite, so, and I'm sorry
People
about
often
that.
forget Sue. They do.
Do they?
But yeah, we'd miss her if she wasn't in the show. She's a great plot device.
Can I talk to you about the voice of Sue?
Yeah, do.
Because I saw you when you did your talk. We're here at the Magic Circle, by the way, which I may have mentioned.
Indeed, we're sat in the Devant room.
You did. And you did this wonderful evening here, which was all about Sooty and the history, and you had your the people who help you with it and everything.
Yeah.
And you talked a little bit about the voice of Sue. The lady's still going.
She's still the voice of Sue, yeah. She's been doing it for nearly 40 years now, and she will continue to do so. It's that voice. It can't be any other voice, really. And she's called Brenda Longman, and she's an absolute delight and a real supporter and lover of Sooty, and everybody that works on that show loves it. And I'm lucky because I inherited when Matthew retired. I mean, most of the crew are still the Matthew crew. I mean, even though he's been gone 20 years, I've done it 20 years now, the core people are still Matthew's people, and they were there because they loved it. And that's why it works so well, because, they put up with all sorts of crazy hours and, some really hairy, stressful situations sometimes to get everything filmed in a short amount of time within budget. They just do it because we love it, we keep smiling through it, and we get there.
I'm a broadcast journalist, as you know, and I've heard a rumour, I hope you're allowed to talk about this, which is that there might be a Sooty movie.
Yeah.
Can you talk about this yet?
I can.
Yeah.
It's beyond a might. We worked on it probably for a few years, probably just after we last met. We've been working on it. It's a tough game, the movie business. Andy Nyman's been very helpful, actually, because, of course,
really?
There's a guy that took his play to become a major successful feature film. So, he's been very helpful along the way, and introduced me to Jeremy Dyson, who had a good go at the script with me and some other writers. We've got an incredible script, a fantastic producer, a first division director, and we're just in the final process of getting all the money together because, geez, these things cost a fortune. And they have to, because people expect that spectacular scale on a big screen. This is not an hour-long version of the TV show. This is a huge production with big stars. It's hugely exciting.
This is amazing.
And I phoned my brother up a couple of weeks ago and back, Dave, this is really going to happen. I've just come out of a meeting and I think this is really going to happen, and I never thought it would really happen, but now it seems to be really happening. But even if it doesn't, it's been such a great, fun journey, and the script's knockout. The script makes me cry when I read it, not only with laughter, but there's a moment which I think, if it does get made, that everybody will cry real tears. I sent the script to Matthew Corbett, who's going to be in it. He's going to come out of retirement and be a cameo in there. And he wrote back and just said, oh my goodness, my father would be crying if he could see this. He said,
wow.
this is, we have pushed it to a different level, and that's due to the writers, actually. There's some lovely, it's not all, trousers dropping down and custard pies. There's some lovely little moments in there, a belter of the moment. I won't spoil it. Let's hope it gets made.
We all know in this business that things can change, of course, but have you got any idea on a year that it might be released?
Yeah, next year. Well, next year we'd look to be shooting it. I mean, the producer who's driving this is an eminent man, and he is absolutely having cameras on this in the summer. It's got to be made when the weather's good. And that's very much in his thoughts, and it's not ifs, it's happening in his mind, and he's the guy. So I'm just sitting back thinking, wow, Of course it might not, you never know, and it's reliant on investors. But if it gets made next year, I would expect it would probably be out early 2020, because these things do take a while.
Yes, of course. I touched briefly on the evening you did here at the Magic Circle. You put a lot of work into that, it was fair to say, right?
Yeah, it wasn't hard, because I love it. It's a fantastic and fascinating story. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes politics that ran through the little history of Sooty that people aren't aware of, so I did share all of that. And it's just wonderful that at the centre of this story, and through my own hardships and hard times with it, I mean, I've done it for 20 years and it hasn't always been easy, is this tiny little yellow, I hate using the word puppet when I talk about Sooty, but because in my mind he's real. I know that sounds crazy, doesn't it? But you can't think of it as a bit of cloth. Even though it's a prop, somewhere in some other world we know he lives. It's a crazy kind of feeling. But the heart of it is this tiny, simple little toy. Throughout all of this scandal and history and money and businessmen and investments and licenses, it's just this little tiny toy. It's great.
We've just had this lovely afternoon here at the Magic Circle where we've watched the competitions.
Yeah.
Which you and I can remember
all that
being a
young
part
talent.
of. Yes.
It's just sick. Yeah, it's great.
And then I've just interviewed you on the stage for about half an hour for the young magicians, and you gave a lovely piece of advice to them about being a nice person in this business.
I feel like I'm dispensing advice like a doctor, but I've been around, I've done shows so many times, I've done so many pantomimes and live shows and things, and I'm not being cynical now, but be liked, be reasonable, be humble, be nice to people, make it, if you're on a show with them, just be a team player. I know there's some very talented people who don't get so much work because they're not team players, they've got great acts, and I've seen it happen. And I mean, if you're a nice person, we're in a great business. Why shouldn't you enjoy it? And this politics and shows, I've never got it. But just remember, you don't upset people. Don't be weak. But at the same time, just remember, you've got to. It's very important to be liked. You've got to be in business anyway, but particularly in show business.
You're like the nicest guy I know. But you know what? There's lots of magicians listening to this. Do you think that's one of the reasons? Obviously Sooty's a legendary character, but the fact that you're a nice person, you're easy to work with. How important is that when you're making TV shows and you're going on tour and you're trying to get movies made? And
I think it's very important, and also people obviously associate me as being the performer, but I was a producer for a time. I had my own company in the West End there, producing live shows and
you used to do pantomimes,
major pantomimes, yeah. And we would cast people not only on their ability, but if they were team players. It's important. And I think I've learnt, I wasn't maybe always like that, but I think I've learnt everyone's got an opinion. And if it's wise just before you shoot them down, just to take a breath and listen to what people have got to say. Because sometimes, you're not always right. And I've always been open to the fact that I might not always be right. So don't be afraid to take advice, and don't be afraid to listen and consider, and be seen to listen and consider. And I think that it is important in this business. It's a tiny business, particularly, and this sounds terribly flash, because I don't put myself right up there, but I'm lucky to have got some lovely work, doing stuff on the telly, working with, ITV, people like that. And the higher up you get, and I don't consider myself to be anywhere near the top, the smaller the business becomes. And yeah, so it's important that people like you and that they get on with you and they want to work with you and that you're open to everyone's ideas, Ultimately, you're the guy executing those ideas. So you get final control. You're ultimately going to be the guy doing it. So, yeah.
You've had an amazing day, and we can talk about this because when this goes out, it's going to be a long time from now, but
Yeah.
today you've been to the London Palladium.
Yeah.
There's this massive show happening for His Royal Highness's 70th
It's
birthday.
Prince Charles's 70th birthday.
And they asked for Sooty.
Asked for Sooty and Sweet to be on the show because Charles got given a Sooty when he was a baby by Harry Corbett.
This is amazing.
And when you see the show go out, I mean, this is great because I can tell you now, even though it's confidential, by the time this goes out, it won't be. They're doing a whole pastiche of Sooty and Charles through the ages. They photoshopped Sooty on with Charles as a baby, photoshopped him playing polo with Charles, photoshopped him getting in his crown and his royal regalia. I mean, it's a great thing for Sooty, but what amazes me is that, hang on a minute, he was just a kid once, Charles. He grew up watching this. And when we have all these other, Barry Gibb from the Bee Gees, is a huge Sooty fan. You think, oh my, but he was a kid watching it. This is the thing I sort of forget. Well, hang on a minute, they were kids too. But yeah, what an amazing day. And I obviously will meet the Prince and do all of that stuff. So, and I just think, crikey, this is just ridiculous, isn't it? To be, that this little teddy bear's taking me on this journey.
And this is a nice little segue, actually, because when I bumped into you this afternoon, you just come from the Palladium. You said to me, the first thing you said was, I've just rubbed shoulders with the Ehrlich brothers.
Yeah.
And everybody knows who's listened to the first episode that you were an illusionist in
Yes.
a previous life that stopped around the age of you were in your 30s. And you told the story on the first podcast. You're an illusionist again, Richard.
Oh, I went back to it. I
Please
did.
tell us. I mean, this. First of all, when I heard you were going back into the game, I was so happy to hear it. We'll talk about what you've been doing with it. But why? Why did you go back?
Well, I went back to the illusions because I've love for them. I love the big boxes, and I just thought I can still get away with it. I mean, I'm 50, but I'm okay. I go to the gym, I look after myself. I can still get away with it, and why not? And I'm not being flash. I work very hard, and I'd saved some money. I don't have a family, and I suddenly thought I could buy one of those props that I could never afford when I was doing it for real. And I thought, I'll have a slicer, that wonderful Fran Ferrari prop.
That's where the box splits into like 9 boxes.
Yeah, and you put the girl in. I thought, I've got a different design. And I thought, I know what, I'm going to go to Las Vegas and get one of the very best builders to build it. And I phoned Illusion Projects, only to find out it was Tim Clothier, who I used to teach. I taught him his winning Young Magician of the Year act. So it was like, hang on a minute, what are you doing there? And he said, what do you want that for? And I said, well, it's just this stupid thing. I'd love to do it again. And then I thought, well, if I bought the slicer, I'm going to need an opener. I know, I'll appear on a motorbike. And then it just went crazy. And then I got the gig at Winter Wonderland doing the Illusion show 4 times a day. So I did the great big chainsaw escape thing and this motorcycle appearance and the slicer. And I finished off with, and I did a bump in the night, a really nice modern twist on the bump in the night, and I loved every second of it.
Also, I think you played it down a little bit actually, because also you had dancers and you obviously it's a magician's podcast. You had a double and everything.
Yeah.
Like this is you didn't half-ass it, did you?
No, but I've got to tell you about the double. I have got a brilliant double. I mean, he's the same size as me, same shape as me, got the same hair, everything's the same. But I'm really lucky because I have another business which I know you talk about now and again. I love my fun fairs, and I have a ghost train, and I have a Polish guy that's worked for me for 3 or 4 years, Grigor, who runs the ghost train. And when I was thinking about getting the illusion, I'd ordered the slicer by this point. I'd ordered the motorcycle, and I'm chewing over what to buy, and I'm standing on the ghost train, and I'm looking at Gregor, and I'm suddenly realising that he's a dead ringer for me from the back. So when I do that fantastic switch, and the thing is, I don't have to hide his arms the same. We're all the same.
There's no rush.
No.
When you switch for him, it's great.
Yeah, we let him hang around there. In fact, there's a video on YouTube, Richard Cadell, Zippo's Circus, that. And I don't know who put the video together, but they sort of zoom in really close when we do that switch. But go and have a look at it. Just go and look at it just knowing it's a switch, because it's like, hang on a minute, we know he's switched, but he looks really convincing. So I'm really lucky I've got Gregor. So I max out on Gregor's doubleness, yeah.
Talk to me about this gig at Zippo's Circus in Winter Wonderland, because you were doing like 4 performances a day, and you were doing the Sooty show in the morning at 11 o'clock.
7 weeks, you don't get 1 day off Christmas Day.
And it's cold there as well.
It can be cold in the wind, so they heat the big top, but when you go from the dressing room to the big top, you're out in all the elements, freezing. I did the water tank last year, so I used to walk dripping wet from the back of the ring to the dressing room. That could be horrible sometimes, to be honest. But I'll tell you what happened. Martin Burton, who owns Zippo's, was asked by Winter Wonderland to put on a branded children's show in the morning to bring younger people to Winter Wonderland, and he called me to see if he could book the Sooty show. And I had a meeting with Martin, and we did a deal for Sooty, but I said, there's a catch. I'd done a pretty good deal with him. He thought I was going to try and screw him for some more money. And I went, you have to let me do my illusion act in your circus. And he went, what? And I told him what I was going to do. So I absolutely engineered the illusion act for me to do it. So doing that 4 times a day, and it didn't, I was there. That was my fun bit. I couldn't wait to finish the Sooty show and put the tight lycra shirt on and play Mr. Magic. Yeah, so I engineered that deal. And then the second year I went back there, and of course it was kind of a given that I would do the illusions in the show. They were very pleased with them, and it gave me a chance to buy some different props and do it all again.
When I know from experience that when you do that many shows, stuff goes wrong because of just the pure science of repetition doing it. Did you have any little adventures that first year?
First year, no. First year was okay. First year I did the motorcycle production, which is actually, even though I credited Tim Clothier earlier on, it's a Mike Michaels prop, brilliantly engineered prop, and nothing to do with Mike Michaels. But if you don't charge the batteries up, which I didn't, or I learned that you had to charge them up more regularly, then the cloth. So what happens is you've got this like 4-poster frame which is empty. It gets wheeled into the centre of the circus ring. A 4-sided cloth drops, shielding that, the whole frame for a moment, and then it drops again, released from the top to reveal me sat on the bike. So it dropped to enclose the frame so you couldn't see me. So I'm now appearing, the bike's now in position. I hit the button for the cloth to reveal me, doesn't power because there's no power in the battery, won't release. So now I'm struggling, pushing, the music's running, and eventually I crawl out from under the cloth and sort of say hello. They didn't see the bike, they don't see anything. It's terrible. That was the only thing that went wrong. But last year I was very brave. I had an idea with Tim, basically to do something different with the water tank. It was a brave move. Whether the effect was, whether it really transpired to be what I wanted it to be is another question. But basically, it involved me apparently crawling or coming out through the front of the glass of the tank, like a penetration with the water behind. And it was for real. There was really 3 tons of water in it, and I really was, out of the glass, and the water really was behind me. And I did have a situation where that went wrong, and I lost all the water into the ring. Yeah, it was a nightmare, and I couldn't stop it. You try stopping a flow of that amount of water. I lost about half the tank, actually. And the Radio Times were reviewing it. So if you Google Radio Times review Winter Wonderland, it says, on the performance that we were in, it was rather odd to see Richard Cadell, known for the Sooty show, performing magic. On this occasion, he had a rather unfortunate brush with the water tank, resulting the ring was flooded for the rest of the circus, meaning the circus had to be stalled while mops were brought to the fore. And then this is the ending thing of the review. It said, maybe with Sooty's help and a little more practice, things will go better next time. What are the chances the Radio Times were in on that one show out of 150 shows?
That is bad luck.
It was a nightmare at the time, and I was embarrassed and stuff. But hey, you know what? I was trying to be different, and there's no shame in that, So
I was going to say, actually, can we just touch on something which I've only mentioned once before on this podcast, which is you are in really good shape. And actually, there's some magicians listening to this, and I think it's something we all struggle with, particularly as we get older. But I hope you don't mind me saying, you're in your 50s, and you look great, Richard. What's your regime? Like, how do you...
Bless you,
especially
Richard.
when you're on the road doing the Sooty show, when it's 150 dates. How do you manage to do it?
I go to the gym. I go 4 or 5 times a week. There's no secret to it. I sort of watch what I eat, but I train. Yeah, I lift weights, and I'm very lucky. I'm part of a gym where the lads are really, I'm probably not the oldest person in there, but one of them. And it's a rough and ready gym, and they go there and we shout and scream and F and Jeff and lift these things high above our head. And I actually really like it, and it's a great release from the, it forces you to think about other things. If people are listening and they're frightened of gyms, maybe they've not been to the right one, but if you're stressed in your life or you've got a lot on your mind and all that stuff, you can't, when you've got a weight above your head, you can't think about that stuff. So it's a great stress relief. Yeah, I love it. It's simple, and you'll be amazed, if you just change your diet and give it 2 or 3 weeks in the gym, just commit to it. I train 4 or 5 times a week. You'll find after 3 weeks that you'll suddenly look in the mirror and think, hey, oh my goodness. And it doesn't matter how old you are. It's just a question of bit of discipline. It seemed some people are frightened of it. Yeah, so that's no secret. And when I knew I was getting in that water tank, it did spur me on. And I'll tell you a story though. I did really watch my diet when I was doing that Winter Wonderland water tank, and I knew I was going to do the water tank at the Blackpool Magic Convention. But on the way back, literally driving back from Blackpool, I stopped at the services and I bought a 6-pack of Krispy Kreme donuts, and they'd gone, eaten the lot before I even got in the car. And I thought, I was like, I did miss my sugar. But yeah, and also on telly, if you're carrying a bit of weight, it makes you look even bigger. And especially on the Sooty show, I'm throwing myself into, lakes and ponds and vats of custard and that sort of thing. I just think, I have more energy as well for going to the gym. So yeah, depends what sort of part you're playing, doesn't it really? But, I've seen a lot of illusion acts. I mean, let's get brutal, actually. There are some acts where it really doesn't matter, if you're working a silent or you're working a slick illusion act, and I've seen a few people that are overweight, and there's no nice way of putting it, but if they're going to put themselves in those tight shirts and those trousers and project that personality, then they have to commit and be a bit disciplined with it, I mean, if they want to really be in that first division, do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean.
If that's what they're going for.
Well, the world's becoming more and more like that as well, where people are very image conscious and they look at pictures of perfection on Instagram. Actually, I was going to touch on something with you I'm very interested to hear your opinion on, which is you love putting a girl in a box, sawing her in half, and so do I. But the world's changing a little bit, isn't it? With regards to the way women are viewed and fairness and equality, and it's all very positive and it's all great. Do you think there's still a way magicians can put a girl in a box and just saw in half, or
wow?
Do you think it's I mean, it looks dated anyway because it is old, but is it too late to do all that stuff, do you think? Does it need a different approach? I know it's a deep question. It
is a deep question, and I have to be honest with you, Richard, it's not one I've really thought about, and now you mention it, yeah, I mean, it's tricky, isn't it? It's tricky. I don't know how to answer that. I think it's all got to be in context, hasn't it? You've got to see the context it's done with. I know what you're saying. The sad fact of it, though,
it's a scantily clad lady coming onto a stage, put in a box. You never learn her name. You never hear her speak. And we put them in a box and we
chop them up. We treat them like props, basically.
Yes, that's the thing. And so I just wonder whether you...
Well, I've always made a point. I mean, if you saw the Blackpool, if I have a feature girl... I've always said, again, because I speak as an illusionist, or no, I don't always speak, but if you're going to speak at some point, I've always said you need to speak within 10 seconds of coming on the stage, because if you're looking like, Mr. Atlas or whatever, you're looking really ripped and you're projecting this James Bond style image, and then if you've got a squeaky little voice like that, it ain't going to work. So you need to get that out of the way. People are going to form an impression in their mind as to how you think that
they imagine how you're going to talk.
Sound. So it's a real shock to the system when you don't fit that. So the thing, if you're going to talk at all, don't do a trick for 10 minutes and then talk. Say hello the minute you get on, even if it's over the music, just say hi. And I've always made a point of introducing the girls. Here she is, the lovely Gemma. She's going to give them that. But subconsciously, now you say, I don't think I did it to try and make them equal. I just did it out of politeness and respect, that they weren't just lumps of, meat. And that sounds awful to refer to them like that. But yeah.
It's something Sam and I have been thinking about with our act, particularly just as over the last 18 months, the world really has changed, hasn't it? With a lot of this kind of thing. It's not just women, it's more people are becoming vegan and they're becoming more, there's lots of things changing in the world, which I think everyone would agree is all very positive. But I think magic does need to take a little look at itself, actually, with some of these issues as well. There's a whole other conversation about animals in shows now.
Yeah.
People sometimes don't want to see it anymore.
They don't.
Even when it's, have you ever had complaints about Sooty being in the show?
Bears in the show? No. You're right about animals. I mean, obviously my great pal is Jerry Cottle. And, if ever there's a man that you should talk to, maybe it's him, because obviously there's a guy that's pedigree's been circus and the, the sort of the animal movement within circus is obviously well documented, but it's just very interesting how the public flavour has changed. And certainly I'm at, my 50th birthday party, that I had my favourite acts of all time. My favourite act of all time is Norman Barrett. Norman Barrett and his budgies I could watch all night. I Paul Erdin, of course, he'd knock out every time. But Norman came along, and even Norman loved him, with the birds, with the budgies. There are theatres now he can't go to with the budgies. So people are very, very, that they're thinking in different ways now.
Let's go back and talk about Winter Wonderland, because yes, the first year you went and you bought some wonderful illusions that we've all that have been around for a while to say, and the next year you go back, you've gone down a totally different road with original ideas and illusions, which, well, first of all, people don't know. That's a lot more expensive because the illusion builder has to do a lot more R&D. They can't just knock up something they've knocked up before. Why did you decide to do that? I'm interested.
Because I wanted to push myself. I wanted to push the boundaries.
But this was just for fun, you said.
This was for fun. It was for fun. It was instead of a new car. It was a lot of money. But I wanted to try and, we built a prototype. And Tim, I went over to Vegas and we tried it. It didn't work. And we built another one that sort of worked. It was a great journey. That particular tank trick was a great journey because, it was... what started off as we never quite got it right. I think Blackpool was the time when we sort of nearly got it right. Still not right in terms of presentation. A crazy idea, but I just wanted to push myself. The first year I did it for fun, and I bought kind of off the shelf stuff, Bumping the Nights, a few little original tweaks and twists to the stuff. But it's not, you rightly say,
the plots are known.
Yeah, the plots are known. Whereas I wanted to do something different this year to push myself. And to be dangerous and to try something different, and you have to do that. It was more to see what would happen. I wasn't doing it. If I was playing safe, I'd have gone down the same route. I'd have just had more standard stuff and done it very nicely. I didn't want it. It didn't excite me to play it safe. I don't think it was necessarily. On hindsight, I don't know if I'd have done it, but at least I could say I did it. And I did do a different trick. Nobody had ever seen that before, so.
The Magicians Podcast, brought to you in association with the Magic Circle, the world's premier magical society. Are you ready to join the world's most exclusive magic club? Visit themagiccircle.co.uk to find out more.
Free for 30 days. Be a pro. Get Gigi-O.
Sav says it sets the benchmark as the ultimate booking system for the professional magician. What's he talking about? Well, Gigi-O, of course. Top professional magicians love using Gigi-O to manage their bookings and admin. It's an easy-to-use web-based software that takes care of your inquiries, contracts, invoices, payments, and reports. You can generate professional PDF contracts in seconds and allow your clients to agree them online quickly and conveniently. It will even automatically update the diary on your phone. Read what other magicians are saying about it and take a free 30-day trial right now at getgigio.com. Getgigio.com, ladies and gentlemen. Gigi-O is spelled Gigio. And don't forget to enter the competition to win a free gold card at the Blackpool Magic Convention 2019, courtesy of Gigi-O, by posting a picture on your Instagram and tagging in at the Magicians Podcast and at GetGigio. Just show us where you listen to the show.
Whether you're new to magic or a seasoned professional, Alakazam Magic are here to help. Alakazam have been supplying magic to magicians for well over 20 years. Not only do we carry all the latest and greatest magic tricks, books and DVDs, but we also manufacture one of the finest ranges of magic tricks in the world. The Alakazam name is synonymous with great customer service, educated advice and honesty. So if you're shopping for new magic, make sure you check out our website www.alakazam.co.uk or pay a visit to our fully stocked shop.
You spent, I believe, a year being the president of the IBM.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Why did you decide to do it? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well,
it's an organisation that's actually you're quite fond of, isn't it? It's fair to say.
I'm fond of the IBM, and I would urge any of your listeners now to consider joining, particularly if you're younger, because our entry age has just gone down to 12. The reason why I like the IBM is when I was a kid, they were the one magic society that opened me with open arms, because Magic Circle then I think was 16 or 18. So other than the Young Magician of the Year, it was like, I won that, and they said, well, thanks very much, come back when you're old enough, so there was nothing. So the IBM are very welcoming, and I find them to be so friendly. Everybody in it is just, there's no edge. I'm not aware of any politics at all within that, and even in my year of presidency, it's just been happiness and fun. And it's that kind of thing. And I think there's definitely a new wave of youth and energy in it now. It got known as a bit of an older person's club, but that seems to, we've shaken that. We've put on some great conventions. And I just wanted to do my bit. I wanted to try and inject a bit of energy into it, which was easy because everybody else was kind of doing it too. Oliver Tabor there with he's putting the lovely competitions together and getting some circle members even to come and compete and join. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed it. And what an honour to join, that chain with names like Ali Bongo and Jeffrey Atkins and all those people that meant a lot to me as a kid. You think, my name's on that chain now, That'll do.
So you had your president's dinner.
Yeah.
You went to town on this, is it fair to say? But you never half-ass anything, Richard.
I had a blinding president's dinner.
Could you tell us
You were invited.
I couldn't make it. I was really sad not to make it.
It was at Wookey Hole, so
that's Jerry Cottle's place.
Jerry Cottle's place. He owns the Wookey Hole Caves visitor attraction. We decorated the room like it was no tomorrow. It snowed when everyone was there, so it looked like a Christmas card. It was great. I had fire eaters and circus performers as people came in. Yeah, because I was 50 as well in March, so it was an excuse to kind of have a bit of a 50th. But there was a couple of hundred people there, and it was great. Paul Zerdin, Ed Hilson did, his marvellous bird act, did the cabaret with Paul Zerdin, Norman Barrett. We had a band and a disco. Michael J. Fitch did a brilliant breakfast cabaret the next day and a fantastic close-up for us. Mandy was here. Mandy Davis was doing close-up, and I had Stephen Magumi doing their paper cutting, and it was and Jerry Cottle's kids in and out all the time doing stuff. No, it was an amazing night. Another reason to join the IBM, really, because they were all there. We had a belter of a night. Great.
How did the Blackpool Magic Convention Gala show performance that you did come about? And I'm interested to ask you, just to add to the question, were you tempted to say no? That's pretty much the highest pressure magic gig. I mean, short of being on national TV, I think to do a live performance in front of 3,000 magicians is pretty high pressure, isn't it?
Yes, it was. But I've got to the point now where I just think, what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? I've got nothing to prove. I was with another magician actually, Phil Hitchcock. And Phil's another great, solid, working professional. And he summed it up. He said, well, we've got nothing to prove, Rich. We've done it. We've got nothing to prove. And I thought, I'm just going to enjoy this. I loved every second of it. I did 2 shows. They've got that many delegates now that they actually do. For the first year ever, they did 2 gala shows. They did a performance at 6, another one at 8. The second show went better than the first one, which was great because, it's a big thing to stage a big illusion act. I had 8, 9 big illusions, one after the other, and dancers running around the wings and people pulling strings left, right and centre, and me trying to make it look all easy and effortless. I was really thinking, what the hell are we're doing it? But I loved every second of it. I loved every second of it. And what was lovely actually is, I don't know who tipped the guy who was the compere. I forget now, which is terrible. I should remember who was comparing. But the last time I did the Blackpool Magic Convention was 20 years ago, and my signature illusion was the vanishing motorcycle. And obviously the last thing that was my last item on the act, was the vanishing and reappearing bike. And I opened the show this time with the appearing motorcycle. And the compere said, 20 years ago this guy closed the gala show and he made a motorbike disappear, and now 20 years later, he's going to make it reappear. So it's like, hang on, I forgot I did that. So it was just a joyous occasion. I loved it was such a buzz.
I heard there was a brilliant joke. Unfortunately, again, I wasn't there to see it, but there was a brilliant joke apparently where Sooty made an appearance halfway through.
I know what you're going to say.
Do you want to tell the joke?
I know what you're going to say.
I heard about it from across the world.
You see, because never the two worlds never usually collide. Me doing Sooty and the illusions don't collide, so I mixed it up for Blackpool. Very bizarre to go from the bump in the night with the chainsaws to a little box and Sooty pops up. And I think I said to him, "What are you doing here, Sooty? What's that? You paid for it. All right, don't rub it in." Because obviously it was this huge display of money coming on, because these props are obviously very expensive, and they are great, Tim's props. I mean, they do look, they are brilliant, and you work with them, they look $1 million, and they are fortunes. He picks a number sometimes.
Actually, do you want a little scoop? I haven't announced this anywhere else.
Yeah, go on, let's have a scoop.
Tim Clothier is going to be on the Magicians podcast series later this series.
Well, he's brilliant. Yeah, he's an incredible inventor, and of course, he's not only created so many illusions, and of course, is exclusively for Copperfield. I'll let you into secret. I don't know if I could tell you this actually, because everyone will know. But because David Copperfield apparently phones him all hours of the night. I mean, and because obviously for Tim, I mean, it's crazy. If you think 20 years ago, if someone said to Tim, that little kid, Copperfield's going to keep bothering you to build him stuff. But he did tell me a lovely thing, which was so sweet, which I'll share with you. When I did order my slicer off Tim after 20 years of not doing this stuff, he said, Richard, you've caused a problem now, because in our order book, you're going to be down as Richard Cadell. But whenever we build stuff for David, it's always a confidentiality agreement that says we can't feature his name in any of the orders because none of the staff are to know who the props are for. So the name that he'd been using all these years was Richard Cadell as Copperfield's code name, because I'd obviously helped him, which was lovely and was very humbling. I thought Tim, and he arranged for me to meet David, so that was another moment. So I've got a lot to thank him for.
You met him?
Yeah, thanks to Tim. Amazing. Yeah, he set it up. He said, and Tim put a lovely tweet. I'm so happy I made these guys meet. And do you know what really impressed me about Copperfield is I was there all giggly and like dumbstruck and couldn't speak. And obviously, whether he'd been on Wikipedia or whatever, but he knew all about me. He'd taken the effort to say, hi, you Richard, on the Sooty thing, and he'd done a little bit of homework, which I just thought was...
Was Sooty there?
Yeah, I did bring it. When I knew I was... Yeah, I couldn't resist.
Did Sooty have his water pistol?
No, geez, no, I couldn't do that. Could you imagine what would have happened, eh? No, but I did the picture over the shoulder and all that, yeah.
I would have loved that in a way.
What would he have done?
He's got a good sense of humour.
Yeah, but he wouldn't know who Sooty was. I mean, they all look at it like it's... They wouldn't know what they had. Then it's soaked with water. Could you imagine the makeup running and all the...
Also, there's something else you've gone back into, which is great. This year you're going to be in pantomime with Debbie the lovely
Why
Debbie
does
McGee.
it sound naff when you say panto?
It doesn't
I've gone back
sound-
into panto because I loved it. Yeah.
Yes. And years ago, you told the story on the first interview that you used to actually produce them as well as starring in lots of them over the years. You used to produce them as well. And then you've left them alone for a long time, and now you're back starring in the one in Wolverhampton, and you got some amazing magic.
Yeah, it's a fabulous show. They've already sold over 50,000 tickets already for that run. It's an amazing... Wolverhampton is one of the little known, but one of the gems. Yeah, beautiful theatre. I couldn't say no. Really, it was a dream come true.
Yeah.
Bizarre story about how I got the gig.
Can you share it?
Yeah, stupid, isn't it? Stupid story. Just shows you. I mean, because this is the same producer who puts on the London Palladium. So all the stuff that was at the Palladium last year, all those effects, are in the Wolverhampton. Debbie McGee's flying over the audience and all sorts. Yeah, I mean, it's $1 million production. It's incredible. So here's the thing, yeah, this is crazy. I've got a fabulous agent, Michael Vine, who's known to a lot of magicians because he's Andrew O'Connor's business partner and an ex-magician and a great guy and stuff. And we've been toying with the idea of doing panto again, and Kudos are the biggest panto producers. So Michael's definitely thrown my name into the mix with Kudos because they do the Palladium one. Anyway, I wind the story back to May of this year, and I'm running my ghost train because I have this hobby where I go to the fair and I run my ghost train, and I stick a cap on and I look a bit dishevelled and I just sort of blend in my carter's uniform. Just love blending into the background, running my little ghost train. And a lady comes on with her kid, and she goes, "You're Richard off the Sooty show." And I went, "Yeah, that's right." So she goes through the ride, and when she gets off, she says, "My little boy loves the show. Can I have my picture taken with you?" I went, "Yeah, okay, go on then." Bit scruffy, but okay. She says, "You haven't got a clue who I am, have you?" I said, "No." She said, "My name's Catherine. I used to play Snow White when you were Muddles 15 years ago in Stoke-on-Trent in pantomime." I went, Catherine, I haven't seen it all clicked. This is your little boy, and what are you doing at the fair? And she said, "What are you doing at the fair?" And she said, "Well, come and let's have a cup of tea with my husband." So Gregor, my double, he takes over the running, and I go and have a cup of tea with her husband, and we're having a hot dog, and we're talking about lorries and how the rides move from town to town, and nothing to do with show business. And I just clock in, casually mention, "Well, what do you do then?" to her husband. And he says, "Oh, well, I produced the London Palladium pantomime."
Wow.
And I went, like that. And just before I went, Catherine came back over to me. She said, "Do you want to do one?" I went, "Yeah, of course I do." And then within 48 hours, Michael Vine said, "We've got Wolverhampton, and let's go for it." So isn't it stupid? Just being there on the fair and talking to the guy. Here we go. You got to be nice. And I wasn't trying to be nice to this guy. I was having a hot dog with him, just talking about stuff. And obviously in that moment he thought, well, he seems all right.
And also, don't forget, you were nice 15 years ago too, because she remembered and she would say, "Oh, he's a lovely guy," and so it's like, also it's the old thing, isn't it? Be nice on the way up. You know, I'm not saying you're on the way down. I'm just saying, but be nice on the way up, like in the early stage of your career, because some people come back many, many years later, won't they? And you know, if you'd have been and asked her 15 years ago, she would have said something, wouldn't she?
Well, here's the thing, little tip. I'm doing this thing at the minute, you hinted at, the Palladium show, yeah? And people that are producing that show were runners when I first met them at Granada Television. Now they're the people casting it. Now, I'm not saying that I was friends with them just because I thought one day you're going to be producers, but that's how it works, you know. So just remember that you might be horrible to some little subservient runner, and then 5 years down the line. Look at Anthony Owen. Anthony Owen was a runner.
Yes.
I remember magicians auditioning and Anthony being a runner, and them almost not laughing at him, but just being very dismissive of this young magician that had tried to get himself into television. Now they do anything to get his time of day.
Yes.
You know, so just remember these things. Yeah. It's obvious, really, isn't it?
We got sidetracked a little bit earlier on, but you said you rubbed shoulders with the Ellick brothers.
Yeah.
They're coming to Wembley Arena in April. You watch their work? Do you like their work?
They're the boys, aren't they, eh?
Yeah,
they've pushed it. They're at the next level.
Yes.
Yeah, you've got to stand back and say, well. I mean, I love my illusions, but I bow to their supremacy, and I love it. I think it's amazing. I think it's the future, and amazing. They look great. Obviously, you know, again, they've obviously worked it out. They didn't just get out of bed and look like that. They look great. Got nice personalities. Going back to that, the magic's about the person. They've got amazing props, original ideas, big team behind them. Someone with a lot of, you know, it takes some guts to book a Wembley tour. So it'd be very interesting to go along. I hope they do good business. They're superstars in Germany, though. They're well known, aren't they? And
yes, absolutely.
So
in addition to the Ellick brothers at Wembley Arena, you are back on the road again in February.
Forget the Ellick brothers and their huge Pantechnic, and I'm on the road with a transit van.
We have been talking about this, actually. You've got some exciting things planned for the new Sooty Tour, haven't you? Which starts in February, I believe, and runs through the spring. Can you tell us a bit about the Sooty Tour? Because you guys, you need to go and see this, not just for the magic, but just to see a masterclass in entertainment, Richard with Sooty and all the characters, and how to sell merchandise as well. There's a masterclass there as well.
Well, that's the old fairground bit coming out, you see, selling the swag. But well, actually, I'm getting a little bit more indulgent as I get older, hence the illusion. So this one's called Sooty's Magic Show. So before I've always had, you know, Sooty's birthday show, or the you know, Sooty in space and all that stuff. But no, this is blunt. This is a magic show. So this is an excuse for me to do magic in it, as well as Sooty doing magic. So Tim's building me a beautiful floating pedal car. So, and here's one. We're going to get a little. Imagine this. This is the moment I'm hoping to create, and we will create. A little person out of the stage, out a little boy, a little girl from the audience. Sooty's gone to bed, and it's his dream. I've done the putting to bed routine, and part of that is the bedtime story when Sooty dreams of his magic car. So now Sooty's asleep, so we get the little boy, the little girl out, and we pull the cloth off, and there is the pedal car that Sooty's going to get for Christmas. He doesn't know yet. So the little girl or little boy is going to go in the pedal car, and it's actually remote control, it's battery operated, so she can drive around the stage and onto a little ramp, and we fill the car with the magic petrol, you know, as you do. But just before we're going to test the car, Sooty wakes up and he sees it. And this is the thing, this is being built for me by the twins. So I take Sooty out of his bed and place Sooty next to the child in the car, and Sooty wakes up. This is a full animatronic, super state-of-the-art Sooty. But forget that, let's just think of the effect. So now the little child is in the car with Sooty, who's moving and doing everything that they would imagine he would do if he was real, and off they go and they fly.
Wow.
So that's going to be in the show. Hopefully I can give it that moment, because I want to do some stuff that's not all just laughing and jokes and pies and, you know, raspberries. I want to, you know, it's nice to do a nice moment where people go, because that's magic, you know. And plus I've got Michael Jordan in the show, brilliant performer, great.
And again, nice guy as well.
Lovely. Here we go. Michael, absolutely a lovely guy, great act. But you've got to, you know, I've got to spend 5 months with Michael.
Yes. So
when I cast that show, you know, I think, well, hang on, who would I like to spend 5 months with? Obviously, they've got to be a good act. Absolutely, Michael. You know, it's great. You know, ex-young magician, knows the stuff. Not going to do a lot of magic. Michael will concentrate on his circus skills. He's a great circus performer and a great personality. And then we to make the show seem bigger, we've got this UV speciality out called Fantasy de la Nuit, which is obviously a French speciality. Not. It's me and Michael in black suits waving the UV props around that Stuart from Sapphire's building for us. And then I'm going to quickly rip the black suit off and come back and go, Fantasy la Nuit, everybody!
That's fantastic.
So it's great, isn't it? It's great. No, we're going to have a giggle.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, so that's Sooty's Magic Show on the road. We're going everywhere with it. So if any of your listeners want to come, then let me know. Just give a message to box office that you're in, and then we'll do a shout out. We always do the shout outs.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's really kind. and you know what? Obviously, this offer is not open to Magicians podcast listeners, but I just want to tell everybody what you shared with the Young Magicians earlier, because I thought it was an incredibly generous thing. There's about 80 kids in the theatre this afternoon, and Richard kindly said to the kids if they do come to the Sooty show, let them know, and he'll give them a backstage tour and show them the illusions and all the rest of it. That's a really lovely thing you did there. So
well, I think
the Young Magicians thing's still close to your heart. Is that fair to say?
It is. And do you know what? People showed me incredible kindness when I was a young magician. The IBM, Paul Daniels, actually. And, they're at a very impressionable age, and this is a wonderful business. And if we can share some of that with them, then who knows? We might be creating the next magical legend. We might be giving them a spark. I mean, at worst, it's a nice afternoon out for them, and at best, it's inspiring, and they're going to go away. It's the least any of us can do, and it's so easy just to let them walk around the back. It's nothing, is it? But I remember, I told you this story in the last podcast. Paul Daniels replied to a silly little letter I'd written him as a wannabe kid. He took the time to put pen to paper, reply and give me advice when he was at the height of his career. The fact he would reply to me made me think, you know what, if I'm good enough for him, I can do this. I can be as good as him. And that stayed with me. And I just think it's important that all of us remember that we were all kids and give a bit back to them, I think it's great, this Young Magicians Club, and it's just amazing watching them doing their tricks and just remembering that was us, So yeah, no, it's easy, and I'll enjoy doing that, you get a lot of enjoyment out of giving, It's a very nice feeling.
Absolutely great. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. Hopefully we'll talk again in about another 3.5 years' time.
Well, I hope this was not as I hope this was as nice as the last time.
It's been great, as it was.
You're a lovely man,
You're
Richard.
a great talker, and you've got a gala show to do. Hopefully, Sooty has got his water pistol. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, we'll do a bit of that.
I'm looking forward to it. Richard, thank you so much. Always lovely talking to you.
It's a pleasure.
He's just one of my favourite people in the whole world. I hope you enjoy listening to him as much as I do. That was the amazing Richard Cadell. Sooty's Magic Show is on tour all over the UK from February the 9th until June the 2nd. It means you have absolutely no excuse not to pop along to a show to see some of those exciting things that Richard talked about on this podcast. And some of them were built by my guest who will be in this hot seat next week. Tim Clothier, direct from Las Vegas of Illusion Projects, is my guest. It's an episode I am so excited to share with you. It's unlike any interview I have ever done before. This guy builds for David Copperfield. He builds for Chris Angel, and he has an amazing story to share with you. How does a young man go from the West Country to being one of the biggest illusion builders in the world? You're going to find out if you come to the feed next Friday for a brand new episode of the Magicians Podcast. But that's it for this week. Have a great time at the session if you're going, and I will see you again next Friday. Take care. Bye-bye.